Okay, let's go over this Module 3 green sheet. Like I said, it's going to be very useful for this Chapter 3, Module 3 that we're working on, and Module 4. We'll still be doing a lot of this. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is factor trinomials, and I put some videos out for y'all, so they showed it just a little bit different. How do you know this is a trinomial? This is one term, two terms, three terms. All these 6 right here have 3 terms, so they're trinomials. Well, this one isn't. This one can be rewritten. This one's a binomial. But this one can be rewritten like this because there's a 0 where the x is. See how the middle number? Okay, so this is the same thing as that. I'll show you how I'm going to use that. Now, each of these is a trinomial, so we can factor them. That means you'll have 2 sets of parentheses for each. And because they are all starting with x squared, all of them will have x times x at the beginning of each one. Okay, so I did make these the easy trinomials. There's some that start with other numbers other than a 1. They start with, if you notice, they all start with 1x squared. Same thing, x times x is x squared or 1x squared. But you couldn't use this method if it started with another number other than 1 on the x squared, okay? It only works for this method. And then once in a while you won't be able to factor it. It just won't work and you'll have to use a different method. Maybe you'll use the square root method, or you will use the quadratic formula, which the quadratic formula works for all other quadratics that you can't do this or this, okay? Alright, so first of all, what you do is you're looking for a number, and you look at this last number, it's a positive 6. You find all the factors or multiples of 6, starting with 1. So 1 times 6 and 2 times 3 both give you 6. So what you're looking for is this pair. If you add or subtract them, it'll give you this middle number right here. And when you multiply them, it gives you the last number where it came from. Okay, the signs have a lot to do with it. So we're looking for 7. If you add these two, it gives you 7. It gives you, if you subtract them, it gives you 5. If you add these two, it gives you a 5. If you subtract them, it gives you 1. So it's going to be this one. If you add them, it gives you 7. But guys, I don't want just a positive 7. It needs to be a negative 7. So what are my signs going to be? Are my signs going to be plus plus, minus minus, or 1 positive and 1 negative? Okay, so looks like in this case they're both going to be a minus. Okay, because I have to add them. When you add them, they'll be plus plus and minus minus. If you have to subtract the numbers, one will be positive, one will be negative. So negative 1 plus negative 6 gives you negative 7, and when you multiply negative 1 times negative 6, it gives you this positive 6, and that's how you check yourself. And this is all I wanted you to do is factor. It stays like this. I don't want you to solve each one, each parentheses. It's just factoring, so this is your final solution right here. All right, this one, 81. Let's see, 81 is 1 times 81. 3 times 27, 9 times 9. Which one of these pairs can I add or subtract to get this middle number right here, 18? Obviously, 9 and 9. Now I need it to be negative 18, so they're both not plus plus, but they're both minus minus. If I add negative 9 and negative 9, it's a negative 18, and if I multiply negative times a negative, it becomes positive. So x minus 9, x minus 9. You can leave it like this, or you can rewrite it to look like that as well. Okay, same thing. Alright, so let's talk about this one. It started off as a binomial. I changed it to a trinomial. Okay, so I'm looking at 16. Factors of 16 are 1 times 16, 2 times 8, 4 times 4. Which one of these can you add or subtract to get a 0, guys? Yes, 4. One has to be positive, the other one has to be negative. If you add them, you get the 0x. So that's how you know this is correct. And you guys, how do you check this? If you multiply or FOIL out each of them, you'll be able to get the original. Okay? Here we go. 10 is 1 times 10 and 2 times 5. Which one of these can you add or subtract to get the 3? Positive 3? Well, 2 and 3. 2 and 5. Positive 3, so it has to be a negative 2 and a positive 5, because if you do it the other way around, it'll give you negative 3. I want positive 3, so minus 2 and a plus 5. If you add them, you get a positive 3. If you multiply negative 2 times positive 5, it gives you negative 10. 6. I have 1 times 6 and 2 times 3. Well, guys, this time I need it to be this middle number. But what is this middle number? It's a negative 1. So if I add these two, it's a 7. If I subtract, it's 5. If I add these two, it's 5. If I subtract them, it's 1 though. So I do get 1, but I need it to be a negative 1, so this is going to be a plus. This one's going to be a minus. Because if I add a positive 2 and a negative 3, it gives me negative 1. And if you multiply positive 2 times negative 3, it gives me this negative 6. So plus 2 minus 3. Alright, next one, 9 is 1 times 9 and 3 times 3. And this one's obvious. Has to be 3 and 3 to give you 6. And if you multiply them, you get 9. What are my signs? They're both plus plus. So again, this one looks like that. They're both the same. You can leave it like this, but you have to make sure that you know that this also means I have 2 of these, so it looks like that as well. Alright, so this is factoring trinomials, and these are just easy trinomials, okay? But you need to know how to do this. Now, how do you solve by taking the square root? Well, guys, all this means is solve for x. You want to get x by itself, and you want to use the square root method. So you'll have to find the square root of both sides, but you need to get x by itself first. So I need to get rid of, so you're adding 16 to both sides, okay? This is what you're doing right now. You're left with x squared is equal to 16. What do? I need x by itself, so take the square root of both sides. Well, what really happens here is the square root cancels out with the square, x pops out, equals, and what's important, you're not in algebra 1 anymore, it's algebra 2. This is not one answer. This x squared means that there were 2 answers. So you have to put the signs plus and minus because you have a positive number and a negative number. And then square root of 16, well, what is the square root of 16? Plus and minus 4. So what does this mean, guys? You have 2 answers. Your first answer is x equals a positive 4, and your second answer is x equals negative 4. That's what that means. Okay, the plus and minus, you have 2 answers. Alright, here we go. So how do you do this one? I want to get x by itself, so add 72 to both sides. You're left with 2x squared is equal to 72. Now divide both sides by 2. X squared is equal to, what is that? 36. What am I doing? 36. Now, how do I get x by itself if it's squared? Well, you take the square root of both sides. So what you do on one side, you do to the other. And remember what pops out? The square root and the square cancels out. You're left with, I'm just going to come up here. X equals, don't forget plus and minus, okay? After you take the square root of both sides, plus and minus, and then you have the square root of 36, which what is the square root of 36? Plus and minus 6. So your 2 answers are x equals a positive 6 and x equals a negative 6. Alright. Subtract 11 from both sides. Remember, you're solving for x, so you're left with 4x squared is equal to 4. Divide both sides by 4. You're left with x squared is equal to 1, because 4 divided by 4 is 1. I still don't have x by itself. You have to take the square root of both sides. Now remember, this means x pops out equals, don't forget plus and minus, and the square root of 1 is just 1. So your 2 answers are x equals 1 and x equals negative 1. And that's just solving by square root, just a few problems. And quadratic formula. I'll go ahead and start. Now, it does need to be in this format. It has to be in ax squared plus bx plus c, and it has to be equal to 0. If there's stuff over here on the other side, well, you're going to have to move it to the other side, and remember, it changes signs if you had to do that. But both of these are set up where you don't have to. It's not always going to be that easy. So first, let's plug in. A is a 1 right here. B is this positive 4. And C is positive 1. The signs in front of it has a lot to do with it. It's part of it, okay? So these are the 3 numbers that we'll be using. And please don't forget the formula is x equals negative b plus and minus a big square root. Inside the square root you have this, 4 times a times c, all over 2 times a. What I want y'all to add are parentheses around each variable. So parentheses here, 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 and here. If you use a calculator to plug in like this stuff inside, it helps you out. Okay? Now, we're going to go ahead and substitute all the numbers in here. So I'm going to come over here. X equals negative, what is b? 4, plus and minus, a big square root. And then again, 4, b is 4 squared. minus 4 times A is 1 times C is 1. And the whole thing is over 2 times 1. I see a lot of students in my other classes from before, they only leave the 2A underneath this, and it's not. It's the underneath the whole entire top part. Okay? Alright, so what's next? This negative 4 just stays negative 4, plus or minus, square root. 4 squared is 16, and then negative 4 times 1 is just this, over 2 times 1 is just 2. Alright, I'm going to come over here. So I have negative 4 plus and minus square root. 16 minus 4 is 12. The whole thing is divided by 2. And I can show you how to simplify the square root of 12, but for right now I'm going to want you to leave it. This is my answer. The whole thing, remember, is divided by 2. Now, notice how you have a plus and a minus. This really is two different answers, okay? The first answer is x equals this negative 4, and then it's the plus part first, plus square root of 12, the whole thing divided by 2. That's one answer. And the second answer, I don't have any room, I'm sorry. Your second answer is x equals, again, negative 4. This time it's the minus part, square root of 12 over 2. These are your two answers, that one and that one. Okay, let's do this next one. Remember, this is A, B, C. Everything is over to one side, so A is positive 2, B is 5, and C is negative 3. I'm plugging into the same formula here, okay? So x equals negative, B is 5 this time. 5, negative 5, plus and minus is square root, B squared, so remember that's 5 squared minus 4 times A is 2 this time, times C is negative 3, all over 2 times A is 2. So here we go. X equals, this is negative 5 plus or minus square root. 5 squared is 25. Guys, this is negative 4 times 2 is negative 8 times negative 3 is a positive 24. And the whole thing is divided by 2 times 2 is 4. Alright, we still need to finish the inside of the square root. So negative 5 plus and minus the square root. 25 plus 24 is 49. All over 4. Still need to simplify that. X equals negative 5 plus or minus square root of 49 is 7 over 4. And this is a little bit more simplifiable. So how do you do this? This is the first answer. X equals, first you do negative 5, and then you do the plus 7, and then you divide by 4. So what is negative 5 plus 7? That is 2 over 4, which your first answer is 1/2. Second answer, same format. This time it's negative 5. This time you're doing the minus 7, and then you divide by 4. So here we go. Negative 5 minus 7 is negative 12 divided by 4. It's negative 3 is your answer. So these are your two solutions right there. All right. Quickly, this is A, B, H, K. This one is A, B, H, K. A is out here. Oh, this wasn't done right. This square should have been right here. Okay, this is B and H, and this is K. Alright, so let's go over this one. A is just negative out here, so it's a negative 1. Your B, though, this should be the B, which is, if we left it the way it was, this is not what I meant to do. If we left it the way it was, it actually should be A, but we're going to leave it as B, and because I moved this out here. B is 3 in here, but when you take it out, the reciprocal is 1/3. H, guys, there is nothing added or subtracted in here, so H is 0 because there's nothing there. And K, keep the K the way it is 7. And if you look at your cheat sheet, please do so. This negative right here on A, remember that makes it reflect across the x-axis. I'll finish it in another recording.